Hello, you are listening to the Child Care Director's Chair podcast. Your host, Erica Saccoccio, invites you to join her community of passionate and inspiring leaders in the ECE field, where she discusses, reflects, and shares the best ways to invest in our children, families, teachers, and community. Because after all, we know they are the heartbeat of any successful program.
Hey guys, Erica Saccoccio here with the Child Care Director's Chair podcast and YouTube channel. We are so happy you are here today. Today's topic is one that is very important and needs to be talked about, although it's not an easy conversation. We are going to talk today about how to keep kids safe and sound and empower children against abuse. Did you know in the United States, over 700,000 children are reported to be either victims of abuse or neglect each year? This is a heartbreaking statistic, and it underscores the importance of why we need to be vigilant in our classrooms and outside of our classrooms, and to have education on how do we protect our children. Are you equipped with the knowledge that you need to keep them safe? I don't know that I am. So I wanted to learn more, and so I had the privilege of meeting Kimberly King at a Connecticut Association for Education of Young Children's Conference. God, that's such a long title. But I had the privilege to meet with her, and we talked a little bit, and I just thought, wow, what a great guest to have come on the show and talk about it. Because, we talk about so many things, but this is not a topic. In 280 episodes, I can't even believe that's how many we have out. 280 episodes in 1 year, we've never, not once, talked about this. So we're going to talk about it today. You can't escape it. It's on the news daily. It doesn't matter. Poor, middle class, upper class, child abuse is there and it's real. And so I'd like to welcome Kimberly to our show. She is hopefully I say this right, but a body safety expert. So welcome to the show, Kimberly.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So tell folks a little bit about yourself and how you came to do this work.
Sure. So I am a survivor of sexual assault in college, and I didn't tell anybody. I didn't report it. My mom told me not to because I had had a couple of beers and she was like, no one's going to believe you. So I let it go. But I ended up diving into the work of sexual abuse prevention and, volunteering in that space as a young college student. Fast forward to having kids, and I had 3 kids, and one night went into labor, military husband deployed. And so my neighbors had to take care of my kids. The 2 boy and girl that were like 4.5 and 6. And so I went about my business trusting my neighbors. And I did have the foresight to tell my kids just one little thing about preventing this type of thing was that if anybody ever tries to touch you or in your private part areas, that's a red flag and you need to tell me right away. Say no and tell me right away. So this night that happened, my son was getting all these, I guess, body boundary violations from his friend. And he kept trying to do the right thing. He even went and told the mom. The mom sent him back to the room. And then he ended up making a strategy which kept him away from the friend. He couldn't call me. He was 4.5, and this was in 2000 and I think, 6 or something. So it was a long time ago. So he put himself in the bathroom, said he was sick, kept himself safe. In the morning, he told me when I came back to pick him up after the baby and everything, he told me right away. And so this triggered a lot of thoughts and trauma for me, but then it made me take action. So we started journaling. The journaling turned into a book, which is the I Said No book. That's this book. So this is really the first book on how to prevent child sexual abuse using kid-friendly language and teaching them all that they need to know.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and the world, because I am positive that somebody who's listening to this podcast has experienced abuse in one way or another, either themselves or someone in their family.
Yeah.
There's no way that it hasn't touched somebody that's listening to this podcast right now.
Yeah.
So, and I love that you started that conversation really young with your children. And, as a parent, right? Because this isn't just educators that we're talking to. We're also talking to parents. And, we teach our kids lots of things. Wear a helmet, right? Wear your
Exactly.
knee pads when you hop on a bike. Right? We teach them lots of things, but it's such a touchy subject, and for some parents, a scary subject to bring up with
Right.
their children. So,
Yeah.
you know, how does somebody even start? Like, let's get to like,
Yeah.
where's the starting point, right? We don't know. I know I don't know, and I've been an educator for a very long time. And I will say that I have family members, very close family members, who have been touched by sexual abuse.
Well, one thing to start with, I think, for all adults is to learn the statistics and the facts around it. So, what's startling to me, and this is all based on reported cases, so we really don't know, but 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before the age of 18. 90% of that comes from family members, cousins, siblings, people in that inner circle of trust, like that they just trust with no doubt. So there's that. And when we start to learn how abuse happens, we can get ahead of it and prevent it. So when I'm talking to parents, I think one of the most important things and teachers too, one of the most important things I tell them to do is learn as much as you can about it so that you can reduce the risk. One thing parents can do, and teachers as well at school, is make sure that we have a body safety plan. So starting from 2 years old, like as soon as your child can understand language, you can start by narrating a diaper change and talking about the names of the private parts. You want your child and your students to know the names of those private parts. You want them to know the anatomically correct words, because when I was a brand new teacher, I got a report about 3 weeks into it where a little girl came up to me and said, my dad took her cookie. And I was busy, when you're teaching and you got 20 kids around you. I was like, oh, well, tell them not to take your cookie. And I just I didn't even think twice about it. The next day she came back and she said, my dad took my cookie again and it hurts. And then I asked her to show me where she was hurting and she pointed and I was like, oh my God. So like I missed it because I didn't know her word and she didn't know my word. So teaching that vocabulary is very helpful in reporting child sexual abuse to a safe adult. And also, it is preventative because predators and people that do this to children are looking to get away with it. So if your child is like 3 or 4 and they already know the correct terms of their body and they already know some simple rules, like I'm not going to keep secrets and, boundary
Hmm.
things, they're not a good target. So that
Mm.
predator will move on. So the research shows that when you teach children these strategies consistently and in a calm, clear way and reduce the risks at the same time, you have much better outcomes.
Wow, that is great advice, and we incorporate language every day in our toddler classroom, so just making it more natural. Yeah.
Yeah, and people have it's the grown-ups that have the adults, the
Yes.
adults have the hang-ups about the words. Like it should be okay to teach a child like their ear and also what a vulva is. And so like it's just our hang-ups. They have no connection to the words other than it's a body part. And we go from there, after we teach the vocabulary, you can teach your kids all about, simple safety rules like consent when you're giving a bath or, when you're at school and, you're trying to get your little toddler to get their coats on, instead of just doing it for them, start asking, say, can I help you? And like model that consent
Mm.
language. That's really important in the early childhood setting and with young kids at home too. So kind of
Well,
it can happen organically. You don't
yeah.
really have to get into all the weeds of it because it can happen, very organically that way.
What are some common signs that a child may be experiencing abuse,
Yeah,
and
that's a
how
good
how can we
question.
how can we recognize it?
It's a really good question. So you have to think about the situations where your child is alone with another adult. That would be like the first thing I would start thinking about if I was worried that my child might be having something going on. But the actual signs of sexual abuse, there are often no signs. So then you have to look for, behavior. Physical signs are rare, especially for younger children, but you can look for like a diaper rash that won't go away, bruising in the private areas, the genital areas, like weird infections you wouldn't expect a toddler to get, a toddler peeing all the time, or a toddler being scared to be around a certain person. A toddler or young child can also change how they behave. So I interviewed a person for my new book, Body Safety for Young Children, Empowering Caring Adults. I had interviewed some survivors and I asked them, like, so this was happening to you. Why didn't anybody help you? And he didn't feel safe telling anybody, but he manifested it in his behavior. So he went from being a 5-year-old who was the quiet, calm kid to all of a sudden this kid who's pushing and touching and fighting everybody. And instead of any person asking him, "Are you okay? Is something going on?" They kept sending him to the office. He got suspended. He got detention. Like, this is just like not even asking the question. Sometimes you actually have to just say, "Are you okay? What is going on?" So there are lots of, kind of vague signs. And a child is not going to just come out and tell you, my uncle is touching my private parts. They probably will do something more along the lines like, "I don't want to go see my uncle. I feel sick. I have a stomach ache." Like that avoiding behavior is something we can see first. But if you are training your kid in body safety and you are teaching them to raise a red flag and tell mom or tell dad if anybody asks them to keep a secret, if anybody tries to give them presents without parents knowing, if anybody makes them feel unsafe or uncomfortable or touches them in any way that they don't like, they should tell you. They should raise a red flag and tell you because you're that safe adult. So if you start that training early and you use scenario-based language, like practicing, well, what would we do if you were on the school bus and somebody said, "I dare you to pull down your underwear"? What would you do? Like just start generating kid-based reality situations and talk through them with your kids and have them learn how to figure those problems out themselves and support them. All of this stuff about body safety and, not keeping secrets and the difference between what a treat is and a bribe is and all the things you need to teach them, you can do it very gradually. And when you do, those conversations that come later, like for the 10 and the 12-year-olds about when we have to talk about sex, these conversations become easier because you've started early. So,
Oh, yeah, that's great advice. Um, and I would say, gosh, I can't even. My kids are older now. I can't even remember having some of these conversations with my daughter. I did have these conversations more so with my son,
yeah.
which I want to go. I want to go back to the statistic that you said.
Mhm.
Can you go back to the girl
Yes.
versus boys?
So it's one, and this is based on reported cases. So it's
Hmm.
1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys are victims of child sexual abuse before they're 18. So that means that if you have a classroom of 20 kids, there could be 2 kids that are being groomed by somebody,
Hmm.
being abused by somebody. You just don't know. And these are reported cases only. So here's the other statistic that always blows my mind is that 68% of children never tell anybody. That's the statistic where I'm trying to make a difference because when we give kids the language, the
Yeah.
rules, and we give all the adults what they need to do, that statistic will change. Another really important statistic to know about is that it used to be that children, so there's this thing called child to child sexual abuse or child to child harmful behaviors when like a 6-year-old might try to do something to a 5-year-old that they've seen on the internet or that they saw a movie or that's being done to them. That statistic has jumped from 40% to 70%. So now the biggest risk for young children is that child to child abuse, that child to child harmful behaviors is what we're calling it now. Because if a 6-year-old is being abused by an uncle and then they're repeating something they don't
Hmm.
understand in kindergarten, then, that's not abuse. They're just doing something that's harmful and they don't know what that is. They don't understand.
Yeah. And so that's why when we're supervising children, particularly, I say this all the time, particularly on the playground where there's
Oh
lots
yeah.
of places to, I mean, because I work in a center every day, right?
Yeah.
Where in the bathrooms, where there are opportunities
Right.
where you can be alone, not be seen. I mean, it can happen anywhere, but I would say I'm gonna beg to say probably doesn't happen quite frequently at circle time when the teacher's sitting right there,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So you that's so true. So you got to sort of like scan your playground and scan your
Mm-hmm.
classroom, and you want to be able to see everybody at all times. So like if there's a playhouse in your classroom that has a door and windows and can be closed off, you got to get rid of that. If there's bookshelves that make like a nook and like you just can't see, something can happen very quickly that can really make somebody feel uncomfortable. Outside in the playground, I remember the last year I taught preschool, we had a preschool streaker. He just took off his clothes and ran,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody was freaking out. It was, oh God. I mean, kids do wild things, and some of this stuff is just normal wild child behavior, and the kids just
Mm-hmm.
don't know the rules yet. That's our job, right? We're teachers, we're parents. They've got to learn the rules from us, and so sometimes you have those like teachable moments where the
Yeah.
Anthony just runs wild in the playground, and you got to deal with it. But um, it's really interesting too for teachers because you also have to prevent yourself and your staff from getting into any kind of a situation that could be
Mm-hmm.
risky. So I tell teachers like, okay, let's say we have a potty accident. I want the parents of my class to have practice potty accidents at home and make sure their kids can like take off their dirty clothes, clean up, put the clothes back on, and like try to work towards that so that I really don't have to do anything. I can just like watch and supervise and give them privacy and coach them.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's not available, I won't even help a kid unbutton their pants. I always have another adult with me if I have to help another child. So that's one way to protect yourself if you're a teacher. And then the other thing that is a new risk right now in daycare centers and schools and everything is cell phones. So teachers and assistants who have cell phones in the room, they really can be used for harm. And there are a couple of cases recently where there was a preschool teacher filming children and then using AI to manipulate images and share these inappropriate things. There was also a case up here in Connecticut about a YMCA, a person looking at child sexual abuse material while they were working with children. So
Jeez.
it's the people that do this stuff. They don't, they come in, they groom everybody, they are well loved, respected assistants or teachers or whatever, and they have their phones, and you just assume they're not really doing anything with their phones, but they can be taking pictures, and even taking a regular picture of a child is not safe anymore. Like posting pictures on your websites is not safe anymore because we have AI and we have predators and we have chatbots. And those three things come together, and predators are actually grabbing photos of children's faces off of Facebook, off of preschool websites, off of your social media. They take a picture of their face, then they use AI and use that face and put it on an existing child sexual abuse material. And then they share it in their dark, disgusting circles. So your child becomes a victim without you even knowing it. So it's
Wow.
like that's a really important thing. I think like one that many childcare centers and schools
Mm-hmm.
don't really know. I mean, I know this because I just went to a conference called Child Exploitation and the National Coalition to End Child Exploitation, and we talked all about how predators are using technology to abuse multiple victims. So it's something to take a look at. Take a look at
Yeah.
your websites. Take a look at how you share photos.
That's definitely very good information. Um, how can children identify who they can trust and feel unsafe with?
That's a really
Right?
good question.
Because like you said, like
Yeah,
very often it's somebody that they know and trust and
right.
have known for a while. So how do
Yeah.
they figure it out, you know?
So what I do is I work with a lot of parents, like teaching them how to do this privately or in groups. What I say is teach your child that the safe adult is a person that would come in an emergency. that would never ask you to keep a secret and would never break a body safety rule. If they are those three things, then they are probably a safe adult. But you can't make a list and say like, well, Uncle John
Yeah.
is a safe adult and the fireman is a safe adult and the police, you can't, the EMT, you can't make those lists, because every day, if you follow this topic like I do, there's an EMT person who abused a person in the ambulance, just like there. The stories are disgusting. So you have to focus on like how your child feels about that person and then ask those questions. A really easy thing to do for preschoolers is make like a little, and I could send you some. I have a little sheet that says my green flag people, and they will color in a green flag and then write the name, like mom, whoever it is, right? And then a couple days later, after reading the I Said No book, I might say, do you have any red flag people? And it doesn't necessarily mean that they are sexual abusers, but like, who are the people that they're not so safe with? And when I did this with my kids, one of my brothers came up as a red flag person when my son said, we were doing this little activity. My son said, do you know why? I said, why is he a red flag person? And he said, because he drives too fast and he went through a traffic light. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's not safe too. So you can learn some things by sort of sorting the people that make you feel safe. And that would be like a green flag person. And then the
Sure.
people who don't make you feel safe. And then you can explore that further. It can sometimes lead to a different conversation.
Okay. Are there any specific skills we can teach children to help them recognize and respond to dangerous situations? You did mention one, like keeping yourself safe, pretending you're sick, going to the bathroom. Are there any other ones that come to mind?
So for young children, we want to teach them the body safety rules, which are like pretty simple. They're in the I Said No book, but basically no one can touch their private parts. Nobody can touch, tickle, look at their private parts. And they can't do that to anybody else. That's a
Mm.
big rule. Nobody can ask you to keep secrets. They're the boss of their body, and they have the right to say no to all touch. So for younger kids, you want to break the rules down to like maybe 2 or 3 rules. And then reading children's books. There's like 15 excellent children's books on this topic that you can start reading when your class is 2 years old, and not making it a big deal, but also like touching on it again and again, maybe bringing a different book every month to talk about the topic. In the classroom, you can teach the body safety rules. You can make a poster, and that can be just something you go to. Like if somebody accidentally touches somebody in a private area, you can say, oh, well, let's look at the rules and let's talk about what happened and let's make sure everybody feels safe. One really important thing in the classroom is that we have to have a system for kids to be able to tell us. So, when you're so busy and all these kids are coming at you with questions and Miss King, and all of that, sometimes they think you're too busy to even receive such a report. So I used to make a little red flag that they, like, if there was a 911 problem that they needed help with right away, it was like if there was a fire, if somebody hit them, or if somebody touched them in an unsafe way, they would give me a red flag, and then I would just drop everything and deal with the red flag. That's something you have to teach, though, like teach
Yeah.
the rules, teach the system. But that makes it a little bit easier for kids to be able to tell.
Yeah. So how can we encourage children to speak up if they feel uncomfortable or safe? Like, I know you have the rules posted.
Yep.
Okay. What, because like you said, we can get really busy in the day to
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
So, and you did mention that, that activity, the coloring the red
Yep.
flag and green flag. Are there any other ways that we can encourage children to speak up?
Yeah, one thing I think for preschool daycare is to focus on consent. And so like reading a few books on consent and then doing a couple of activities which would like reinforce that I need to ask permission to use your pencil. I need to ask permission to share a toy. I need to ask permission to hug you. So I did the last year I taught preschool, something as simple as a consent chain. So we just took like, a little bit of construction paper, cut out like 100 pieces. And every time I caught them practicing consent or practicing a body boundary safety item, I would like say, well, Susan asked for a hug and I'd like make a big deal about it. I just like to make a big deal about those consensual moments because that's how we really can empower kids to develop their body boundaries and to understand the topic. So, and as a teacher too, like you can do things like instead of like just hugging everybody or letting the kids just hug you, you can make a system. You could say, do you want a hug? Do you want a high five or do you want a fist bump or do you want to dance? You can give them some choices so that they
Mm.
see that they have choices with their bodies.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, that's great. I'm a hugger, clearly.
I know
I'm a
I am
hugger.
too.
But yeah, I know. But you're right. But we do have to protect ourselves as educators. So,
Yeah,
um, yeah, so these are good things to bring to top of mind.
yeah,
Um, so let's pretend we're not talking about a toddler for a minute, because I also run a school age program, or even just my own children who are,
yeah.
young adults at this point in life.
Yep.
Um, how can parents monitor their child's online interactions to ensure they're safe? Because
Yeah. Oh gosh.
we all have these. We all
Yeah.
have the phone. We all have a tablet. How can we ensure,
Yeah.
because I know we can block certain content coming in on our younger children, but our teens,
Oh
they're not
yeah.
blocked,
The
right?
cat's
So
out of the bag.
cat's out of the bag.
Yeah. Yeah.
So obviously, this is the world we live in. So, what tips can you give
Yeah.
to school age teachers and parents who work with kids who are very capable at manipulating the internet better than most of us?
Yeah.
Obviously,
So
yeah.
there are two products that are available today for that exact problem. One is called the Bark phone, and the company is called Bark Technology. And then the other one is called the TrueMe phone. So those phones are smartphones, but they are parent owned and parent monitored, and you can set the level of trust to your child. So if you have an 11-year-old, well, first of all, let's go back. If you
Mm.
have the option of not getting your child a phone, if you have a 13-year-old, I say wait. I feel like everybody's got to wait until they're 15 before you get the regular old iPhone that has access to everything and everyone. So if you really have to get your kid a phone, I would totally recommend starting with a Bark phone or a TrueMe phone because you have the control and you can teach them how to be a digital citizen. You can teach them about how to operate and what they should share with text. It takes time to learn. And kids that age are so impulsive that they will do things that you will not believe. And we have kids sharing nudes that are 11 years old. So when that happens on your phone plan, do you know who's responsible for that nude that's been sent? The parent. So that's on you. So we have to get our control back so that we can teach them the things they need to know before they're
Mm.
loose. I have a story. So I have a friend, grandma, who is she has a lovely grandson, and when he was 13 years old, they shared an iCloud account or whatever, and he was sending pictures to his girlfriend, naked pictures, and they came to grandma too, and grandma was like, "Oh
Mm.
my God." And she went
Poor
over
grandma.
to poor grandma. She ran over to his house, screamed at him, showed the parent, and like he lost his phone for a month. So instead of getting there, it's better to get
Mhm.
ahead of it by just starting really simply. The other
Exactly.
thing with the cell phones is that, and he is 25 years old. I have a 25-year-old who I got a phone for him when he was 14. He's addicted to it. He has terrible mental health problems and he has been bullied and people have told him to kill himself. I mean, there have been horrible things that have been said and done to him via that phone. His self-esteem is in the trash. And I didn't know that there were those effects when I gave him the phone. I didn't know it would create anxiety, but it did. There is a book that I think every teacher, every parent should read. It's called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, and it is about that, just the science and the research behind what these phones do to our kids.
Mm.
Um, there's also a show called Undercover Underage, which is, I believe it's on HBO and Hulu, and it's about what happens when a 13-year-old girl or boy has a phone with no supervision, how quickly an online predator can access them in an instant. Like
Yeah.
disgusting images, it's just really dangerous. So the other thing that people don't think about, And if you're not in the sexual abuse realm and obsessed with it like me, you might not know. But like video games. So there's a game called Roblox, and everybody thinks Roblox is just like this safe game, but it is full of little private rooms with dangerous sexual scenes, and predators can message your child in that space
Wow.
right through the video game without you even knowing. So you can be sitting on the couch and your kid's playing a video game or on the phone, and your child might be a target of abuse at this very moment. For teens, the biggest risk is sextortion. And that is, so there are predators, actual criminal groups that target teens to get them to send naked photos. And once the photo is sent, they blackmail the child. They say, well, if you don't pay us $5,000 by tomorrow, we're going to share this with your baseball team and your whole school and all that. And so I think there have been something like 26 suicides from the sextortion schemes that have been going on.
I know somebody that happened to.
Oh, God, it's the saddest thing. And that goes back, like if we connect the dots backwards, if we have been talking about body safety and online safety and sexual abuse, and if you have this like open communication with your kids, if something like this happens, hopefully they would be like, oh my God, Mom, I'm so embarrassed, but look what happened. And they would tell you. Yeah. It's so sad though. They just panic and think that there is no help. Yeah. But there actually is help. There's an organization, NACOSI, National Coalition to End Child Exploitation, and they have something called Take It Down. So you can report what happened and you can actually get it taken down.
Awesome. So. What training? Let's talk about training, because we do PD all the time. Yeah. I'm a teacher who does PD all the time. Yes. And I can tell you right now that the amount of training that is available in my state on the subject, when I go to conferences where I don't see this topic, not nearly enough, right? Yeah. So what resources or organizations have this type of training, or, how do educators undergo training? What, where do we find it? What do we need to know? A really good place to start is Darkness to Light. So d2l.org. I am a certified sexual abuse prevention facilitator, so I can actually train schools and parents and you name it with the program. So it's a 2.5-hour program, it's actually just been redone, and it's very easy to get through. It's trauma informed. It's not super triggering, because there are a lot of victims who are, just the statistics alone. But you would leave there with CEUs for your continuing education. So that's the one that I work with and for. So that's an option. There's also Monique Burr. They have a curriculum of body safety and sexual abuse, which is like a K through 12 thing. And then if anybody in any state would look up Aaron's Law is a law that was passed that requires all schools K through 12 to have a body safety, sexual abuse prevention curriculum. And a lot of states have passed it, but I am finding as I travel and I speak and talk to teachers, a lot of teachers don't know about it yet. So that would be one thing to like spread the word with every teacher, even though it doesn't apply to preschool, it should eventually trickle down to that. But find out what Aaron's Law is, and Aaron's Law has a page, aaronslaw.org. They have resources, they have trainings, they have advocacy, and it's a great idea to really find out about that. But Darkness to Light is the easiest place to start. They have tons of free video and content on there as well. Awesome. Is there anything that you really would like to share with our listeners today that I didn't ask you? Sure. I would love to share my book, which is kind of like my passion. So this is the book I wrote for this problem, for parents and teachers, so that they can get on the same page with this. Because, the kids, once they go to school, they're spending like 80% of the time with the teachers. So there is this huge way to communicate with each other to protect children by being educated and empowered, by reducing the risks, and by sharing resources with each other. So when you have that partnership with parents,
coming from home and from school, you're like multiplying the protective factor by like 1,000. So like we really do have the ability to prevent this. And it actually, the statistics say that when programs are instituted and parents and teachers work together, 95% of this can be prevented, which is a huge number.
That is an incredible number. So how many pages are in that book?
Yeah, it's 184 pages, but it has like some scripts you can use in your classroom to teach body safety. It's got like it's got recommendations for books. It's got charts. It's got like definitions of like how to teach the body parts. It's very user friendly.
The reason I asked you is I'm gonna give you a page number. I'm going to ask you to read me an excerpt from that page. Hopefully, it's a page that has words and not a picture. We're gonna go with page number 26. Oh, this is not plans, guys.
Yeah, let's see what's on page 26. Okay, page 26 is talking about grooming, and this is a tactic that groomers use to groom children. And one of the things that a predator might say to a child is, your parents will never forgive you. If they find out what we did, you didn't say no, it's your fault. So that's something, when a child is being abused, that's how they keep a child silent. And that tactic is called shame. So I talk about how a child is not able to give consent to a sexual relationship, and the blame shame game is the first way that a predator starts to try to take control. So I give what you can do, a tactic, and then what you can do. And there's actually, I think, I've got like all the so chapter 2 is actually free on, if you go over to Amazon, depending on the day, the Kindle book is available, which is funny. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. But there are 2 free chapters, and chapter 2 is all about grooming. And I think this is probably one of the best chapters in the books, about how to flag abusers and the techniques they use to groom parents, teachers, schools, and children.
That's awesome.
That was a good one.
Yeah, well, look at that. So thank you for sharing all of your awesome wisdom. Let folks know where they can find you, because I'm sure they're going to be very interested in your book and, all the things that you're doing, because who doesn't want to keep their children safe?
I know. It should be just like you said about like the helmets. It should be as easy as buckling in the seatbelt if we start early. You can find me on KimberlyKingBooks.com, or I'm on Instagram. My little name is Tough Topics Mom on Instagram. So you can find me there or on my website.
Awesome. So all of you that stood through the whole podcast with us, I want to say thank you so very, very much. If you have not been part of our new newsletter, please sign up. Go to our website. I was going to say the wrong thing. Child Care Directors Chair Podcast.com, or follow us on Instagram. But we are so happy that you joined us today. We love to welcome you into our community. And if you're somebody who tunes in every day, thank you. I love you. I say it every day, and I'll continue to say it. So that's all for today. Have a great day. Bye.
Well, all the cute little kiddos have been picked up, and it's time to go home. And that'll do it for another episode of the Child Care Director's Chair. Please leave a review so Erica knows the information is helping you to manage and improve your child care centers. Remember to subscribe to get the latest episode from Erica's Child Care Director's Chair.